came from the only eyewitness to the shooting, a man who was already gone.
Darryl Walker, accident or murder. There are moments when a 911 call is more than an emergency report. Sometimes, hidden inside those few seconds of audio, is the beginning of an investigation that will eventually force an entire family to answer a devastating question. What really happened? In the early hours of November 22nd, 2023, deputies in Escambia County, Florida, responded to a report of a shooting inside an apartment. When they arrived, they found a woman critically injured. Her name was Sheena Marie Levine, and the person who could potentially explain what had happened was already gone. At first, investigators had only one surviving eyewitness account. According to the information later presented in court, that account described a confrontation between husband and wife that ended when a firearm discharged, even turned into something far more deliberate. Raw live footage opportunity. Police arrival 911 dispatch audio. Use only with permission or a lawful basis. The story begins before investigators ever entered that apartment. It begins with a phone call. # the phone call. It was just after 5 o'clock in the morning. 21-year-old Lyric Walker was asleep after staying up late working on an English assignment. The following day was Thanksgiving. She expected to spend the holiday with her family. Instead, her phone began ringing. The calls were coming from her father, Darryl Walker. At first, she didn't answer. Then the calls continued. Eventually, she picked up. What she heard immediately changed the course of her morning. Her father told her that something had happened involving her mother and a gun. Lyric wanted to know whether her mother was okay, but her father didn't give her the reassurance she needed. Instead, she was told to come to the apartment. The information was frightening, but there was another reason Lyric was immediately alarmed. According to her later account, there had been a long history of conflict between her parents. She described her father as having struggled with alcohol and said the family had experienced previous incidents of domestic violence. That history would become important to investigators because it provided context for what happened inside the apartment that morning. Raw life interview body camera opportunity. Lyric statement. If the footage is legally available, Lyric wasn't alone. She woke her 18-year-old brother, DJ. Together, they rushed toward their parents' apartment. And when they arrived, they found the scene that would become the center of the investigation. Sheena was lying inside the apartment with an apparent gunshot wound. Her children immediately realized the situation was far worse than the phone call had suggested. DJ called 911. Emergency responders were dispatched. And inside the apartment, investigators began documenting what they found. The apartment. The scene contained several pieces of physical evidence. Investigators recovered a spent shell casing. They also found a live round, and a projectile was recovered from the nightcap Sheena had been wearing. There was also significant blood evidence. But investigators were interested in something else. The condition of the apartment. Certain objects appeared displaced. Items were not necessarily where they would normally have been. That raised the possibility that there had been a physical confrontation before the gun discharged. And that mattered. Because if the shooting was accidental, investigators needed to understand exactly how the accident could have occurred. If it was deliberate, they needed to determine how the evidence supported that conclusion. There was another problem. The man who could explain what happened was gone. Darryl Walker had left the apartment, and his departure would become one of the most important facts in the prosecution's case. Before investigators located Walker, they had an account from Lyric. She told them what her father had said to her. According to her understanding of his explanation, her mother had obtained a firearm. There had been a struggle, and during that struggle, the weapon discharged. That explanation created a clear theory. A tragic accident during a domestic confrontation. But investigators weren't finished. They had to test that theory against everything else they knew. The statements, the physical evidence, the firearm, the position of the victim, the condition of the apartment, and most importantly, Walker himself, the disappearance. While investigators were working the scene, Walker was gone. According to the transcript, law enforcement eventually located him in Panama City. He was arrested and charged with second-degree murder involving a firearm, along with a separate firearm-related offense. Now investigators had an opportunity they didn't have at the beginning. They could hear Walker's own explanation, and he agreed to talk. Raw live footage opportunity. booking arrest, transport, use only of license or otherwise lawfully usable. The interview. Before asking about the shooting, investigators established a basic background. Walker and Sheena had been together for many years. They were married, and according to Walker's account, their relationship had been complicated. He described problems within the marriage. He also talked about his own behavior. He admitted that he had been unfaithful. And according to his version of events, that was one of the major reasons the night had become emotionally charged. He said he had been afraid to tell Sheena about what had happened because he expected her reaction. Eventually, he told her. She became upset. The argument intensified. And according to Walker, Sheena eventually went into another room and returned with a firearm. This is where the case becomes complicated, because Walker wasn't denying that he had been holding the firearm. He wasn't denying that he was physically present when the weapon discharged. His explanation was about how the gun fired, and that distinction would become central to the trial. According to the account contained in the transcript, Walker said he was attempting to calm Sheena. He described trying to keep her from striking him. He said the firearm was in his hand, and then, during the struggle, the gun discharged. Walker maintained that he had not intentionally fired it. He described the shooting as an accident, but investigators began asking increasingly specific questions. Where exactly was the firearm? Where was the magazine? Was it already around in the chamber? Where was Sheena standing? Where was Walker standing? What was the position of his hands? And what happened immediately after the gun fired? Each answer mattered, because investigators weren't simply listening to the story. They were comparing it against the physical evidence. One of the problems investigators explored involved the firearms that were reportedly associated with the household. Walker acknowledged that Sheena owned firearms. He also described a separate firearm that he said she had purchased for him. Investigators questioned him about the weapons because they needed to determine which gun had been involved and why it was present during the confrontation. The questions became increasingly precise. What caliber was the weapon? Where was it kept? Who normally had access to it? Was there ammunition in the weapon? And why would a firearm that Walker claimed was not supposed to be accessible become part of an argument between the couple? The interview continued. Walker maintained that the shooting had been accidental, but another issue was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What happened after the gun fired? According to Walker's account, he stayed with Sheena for a period of time. He said he held her, but he did not immediately call 911. Instead, he contacted his daughter. That decision would later become one of the prosecution's strongest arguments. Why didn't he call emergency services immediately? Was he in shock? Was he afraid? Or did he understand the seriousness of what had happened and decide to leave? Walker eventually left the apartment, and according to the evidence discussed in the transcript, he took the firearm with him. He was later located outside the immediate area. This behavior suggested consciousness of guilt. To the defense, it could be interpreted differently. A person who has just experienced a traumatic event may panic. Fear can cause people to make irrational decisions, and that distinction will become one of the central issues for the jury. The question of intent. The prosecution did not have to prove that Walker planned the shooting long before it happened. The case centered on what happened during the confrontation and whether the killing was intentional. The defense position was essentially that the firearm discharged during the struggle. If the jury believed that explanation, the result would be dramatically different. But the prosecution argued that the physical evidence did not support it, and that meant the jury had to compare two versions of the same night. Walker's explanation and the evidence left behind inside the apartment. The crime scene speaks. Months later, the physical evidence became a major part of the courtroom presentation. A crime scene technician explained the items recovered from the apartment: the spent casing, the live round, the projectile, and the evidence associated with Sheena's clothing. The forensic findings became particularly important because they could potentially tell investigators something that eyewitnesses could not: distance, direction, position, and sequence. The medical evidence also became significant. According to the prosecution's presentation, the location of the fatal wound did not fit the position Walker described during his interview. That disagreement between his account and the medical evidence became one of the prosecution's major arguments. The question wasn't simply whether Walker had held the firearm. He admitted that, The question was whether his description of the moment it discharged could physically explain the injuries documented by investigators. The nightcap. One particular piece of evidence drew attention. The nightcap Sheena had been wearing. Investigators found projectile associated with it. Forensic examination also identified gunshot residue around the bullet hole. That evidence was presented as an indication that the firearm had been discharged at close range. And if the weapon had been fired from a very short distance, the prosecution argued the physical evidence could help determine how Sheena and Walker were positioned. The defense challenged the prosecution's interpretation. But the jury now had something important, a physical scene that could be compared with a verbal account. And when those two things disagree, investigators and jurors have to decide which version is more consistent with the evidence. There was additional evidence suggesting that some type of physical confrontation had occurred. Items inside the apartment appeared displaced. A thermostat had been damaged. A rug was out of position. Shoes were displaced. Other personal items were found in locations that investigators considered significant. None of those objects, standing alone, could tell the entire story. But together, they helped establish the possibility that a struggle had occurred. And that was important to both sides. The defense could point to the disturbed apartment as evidence of a struggle. The prosecution could point to the same evidence and ask what caused that struggle. A struggle doesn't automatically prove murder, but it can become part of a larger picture. Another piece of evidence drew attention. A live round was recovered from the apartment. The prosecution argued that its presence was significant because it suggested that the firearm had been manipulated. Again, the meaning depended on the larger context. The defense had its own interpretation, but the prosecution wanted the jury to consider the ammunition, the firearm, the physical scene, and Walker's statements together, not as isolated facts, as pieces of one sequence. As the interview becomes evidence, Walker's recorded interview would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. He had chosen to speak. He had provided investigators with an explanation, and that meant his own word could be examined later in court. The defense emphasized that Walker had voluntarily spoken with detectives. His attorneys argued that his account supported an accidental shooting. They also emphasized the state's burden of proof. The jury, they argued, could not convict simply because Walker's behavior looked suspicious. They had to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. That principle would remain at the heart of the defense. Prosecution's response. The prosecution saw the same interview very differently. To them, Walker's statements contained contradictions. They focus on his descriptions of where the firearm had been. They focus on what he said about the ammunition. They focus on how long it took him to provide certain information. And they focus heavily on what happened after the shooting. Walker didn't immediately call police. He left. He took the gun. And investigators eventually found him outside the jurisdiction. The prosecution argued that these weren't random details. They were actions that could indicate consciousness of guilt. But the defense had a response. Panic doesn't always look rational. A frightened person can run. A frightened person can make terrible decisions. And a person with a criminal record might panic even more when faced with the possibility of returning to prison. That argument gave the jury an alternative interpretation.
She grabbed the gun. Guns do not fire, for the most part, unless the trigger is pulled. Michelle wants you to believe that triggers aren't pulled on accident, that something couldn't bump the firearm and engage that mechanism. She grabbed the gun. Even if she pushed him, even if she did this, is there not a chance that perhaps maybe she hit the trigger? We know it was fired close. There's sooting that indicates that it was fired close. It's reasonable to believe that his story is true. And if his story is true or even reasonable, he's not guilty. The state has the burden. Please do not forget that throughout your deliberations.
Was there one chambered in it already, or?
Yes, ma'am, and I know that.
Okay.
And
So
that
just-
probably happened when she went in the room. She probably popped it.
So I know that she owned two Taurus. Did she always keep those chambered that you knew of?
Man, those weren't even supposed to be in the house.
Okay.
That I know.
Okay. Did you know that she owned two Taurus?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, okay.
She had those forever.
Okay.
What kind of guns were those?
2 tours.
Yeah. Do you know what kind they were, like the caliber, all that stuff?
Oh, the 9mm?
Both of them were 9mm?
Yeah.
Which one did she walk out of the room with?
No, she ain't walk out the room with what's her name? One of them, the 9mm.
That's
it wasn't even her. It was mine.
okay. And what gun was?
Yeah, she bought probably. She bought for me,
Okay. So she bought you. What kind of gun was that one?
Well, which one? The one
The one that she walked out with, yeah. The one that you had in your hand. It's okay. I get it. It's a tough situation. But this is where your voice matters. And that's what we're here today, is to hear your voice. I respect that you wanted a fresh start and you try to do things right with her. And as a man, I 100% respect that. So now is the best time to obviously give us everything. Because if it comes up later, something changes, it just doesn't look good on your side.
Still, I mean, really, no, actually, it still ain't gonna look good because of my record anyway, man.
Yeah, well, we gotta look at this circumstance, everything that's happening now. This is what's important. So what firearm did she have? I get it, it's a lot going on right now. Like I said, it's not gonna look good if things come out later and something else is found different, right? For us to be able to help you to put your side out there, we have to know everything. And you see me, I'm trying to get everything from you. I'm trying to get your side. Like I said, your side matters. That's why we're here today. They could have just taken you straight to the jail. We didn't have to talk to you. But we want to get this information from you. So what kind of firearm did she have when she walked out? But you're doing good. You're giving us, everything, your side.
You said the 9mm weren't supposed to be there?
No, I said I didn't even know that if they was, that they shouldn't have been there because I was told that they wasn't there.
Why wouldn't they be there?
Shit, probably because she wouldn't want me to touch them.
Okay.
If I got mad or something.
If she doesn't want you to touch the 9mm, why the hell would she buy you another gun? Understand why this isn't making a whole lot of sense, man?
Listen.
We're just
listen. She bought me that gun, She bought me the gun. If she bought me something, why she can't have it?
Okay. But if the 9mm aren't there because she doesn't want you to have them, why is she gonna get you your own gun? You're not supposed to be around firearms, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So she's not keeping her own firearms there to protect you. You understand how that's... And like she's explained to you, we're here providing you the opportunity to tell your side of the story.
I mean, I ain't giving y'all no bogus ass.
Okay.
If she bought it for me, it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. Also, we're trying to figure out
it's
what...
mine. Mine's gonna be there.
Okay.
Mine's gonna be there, man.
Okay.
Are you able to provide what gun she bought you?
It was 45.
Okay. Do you know what type, what? So you just know 45?
That's mine.
Okay. Can you describe color-wise?
Silver and black.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. And then, so from then on, you said the gun went off. What happened after that?
I'm scared and shocked, man.
I get it, yeah.
It was just unbelievable, man.
Did you call anyone? Provide treatment? What did you do after that?
I just sat there and held her, man. And I called my daughter, man.
Okay. And what did you say to your daughter?
She need to come to the house.
Did you call 911 at all?
No, man. I was just waiting till my daughter got there and told her to call.
Okay.
Only reason I ain't do that, man, because she was still moving. I thought like it was just like some a graze or something like that, man.
So you couldn't tell at that point exactly where she was hit? Or did you?
I don't know. I didn't know.
At that point, where was the blood located at? Like, once it went off, or what did you observe? Like, did she fall back? Did she fall down? Kind of where was her positioning?
Like a slow thing or something. I'm like, no. I'm like, no, hell no. Hell no. And I just want to hold her.
Where were you guys at in relevance to the house? What part did all that happen?
It was in the living room.
Okay. All right, so you call your daughter, and then what happens after that?
I just wait, just holding my wife, man.
Does your daughter end up showing up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then what happened once they get there?
Now, pay attention here because it's not what Walker says about the shooting that matters. It's what he did after. We know detectives have already sat with Lyric. They know the math ain't mathin'. Her father made 3 calls before 5 a.m. None of them went to 911.
What happened once they get there?
My daughter asked me, like, what happened? I couldn't tell her, man. I'm just like, man, you gotta call the ambulance. Like, now, I'm just scared because of my record and just because of the bullshit. Prior, man, I'm just like nervous, like, oh man, I'm just thinking these folks finna just do something to me, man.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So I just leave, man. I just leave.
And where's the gun at that point when you leave?
With me.
Okay. When you left, where did you leave the gun? Because obviously we know that you were located in Mariana. Was it in the vehicle? Was it in the apartment that you were in?
No, it wasn't nowhere. It was in the vehicle.
So that night, right before everything happened, were you out with another female, or it was just, like you said, you were just kind of running around, clearing your head, and okay.
That night, man, I was out with my boys.
Okay.
My sons, man.
Trying to clear your head.
Yeah, they want like no, because I'm trying to stay in a good place, you know what I'm saying? Around and waste the food she cooked. And I ain't want her to just felt like I wasn't just pointing no too much.
What she cooked?
Eggs and rice.
Oh.
You said you're trying to stay in a good place. What do you mean by that?
Just, you know what I'm saying, staying in a good head space, like, because I had to tell her.
It's probably a lot weighing on you.
I had to tell her, man.
Have you all had, I mean, we're talking about you were seeing somebody else on the side?
Nah, hell no. They were just stepping out, just doing dumb shit that I ain't had to do, man. And that one time, man, just like, man.
But you were worried you'd caught something when you did it?
Yeah, man. It was the damn vape.
Was it something that showed like physical signs of like sores or anything, or was it just that had you feeling weird and that's why you thought?
I caught the cold. It's like I couldn't, man, because I don't keep no cold long.
Yeah.
I don't keep no cold long, and I just couldn't shake that cough, the phlegm. I couldn't shake it for some reason. I'm always coughing like, and I'm like, nah, man, this ain't me, man.
Yeah.
This ain't me. I'm like, dang, man, I hope it ain't nothing like that, man. And I was just nervous. And then.
What did you think it was?
What I thought it was? Man, what else? Some AIDS.
Huh.
Like for something like to be happening like that fast, like that. And then, like I say, man, I'm just, man.
You want to be honest with her?
Yeah, cause that night, like, cause it wasn't. I couldn't tell her no.
Yeah. But like the weeks you know, leading up to everything. Everything was good between y'all. You were trying to see it, you know, good start.
Listen, man, I changed my whole life, man. I started in my Bible and everything.
Yeah.
And then for this right here to happen, man, I'm like, man.
When she came out and she had that gun, did she do anything to it? Or how was she holding it?
Like,
holding it up? Did she like rack it in front of you or do some weird stuff? Or just kind of was just in her hand?
Holding it.
Just holding it?
Just holding it and talking.
What was she talking?
You should have knew better. Like that.
Knew better than do what?
What else? Step out, like, bring something on. It was more like a knew it.
Should have known better. What was she telling you? She's gonna leave you?
No, hell no. Been through a lot of dumb ass bull. Nah, but for as leaving, hell no.
If you choose watching the interview again, because I think this is where things kind of go off the rails. Investigator Chambly is there. I think it's very clear why he was there. It's because Investigator Wallace is engaging in her first investigation as the lead investigator. He's there to supervise. He's there to monitor her. He's there to make sure everything's done right.
Objection, facts not evidence.
I invite you to look at the demeanor of Investigator Chambly. I invite you to look when Ashley Wallace looks over to him and says, "Anything else?" And he interjects. He interjects, and watch how he goes about talking to Mr. Walker, right? Watch how he ignores, and the state ignores, Mr. Walker's clear statement where he says, "I backed up and the gun went off. I backed up and the gun went off." Yet when Investigator Chambly does this physical recreation, right, he makes sure, and your hands were behind his head. They were behind her head. They were behind her head, right? They're behind her head. And now the state is going to make this inference, and that was when the shot was fired.
Did you still kind of have a hold of her when the gun went off, or were you completely separated?
Yeah, kind of like holding her, like, so she can, like, stop.
Were your hands behind her head or kind of on her shoulders?
Let me show you.
You describe it the best you can. Did it help? Yeah.
Come on, bend down some.
So you had to
holding like
this?
Yeah, like holding up, holding. Like bait.
Kind of like that?
But you know, like
I got
if
you.
it's a woman on me, you know what I'm saying?
You're just holding her.
Like holding like
I
bait.
got you.
Like bait.
Yeah. So then your the guns and stuff,
yeah,
everything
I got the gun and the magazine like in my hand while I'm like holding them.
So it's all like in the back of her, like right?
Yeah.
If it was in this area. Okay.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm just trying to.
And then when you stepped back, you still had the arms around her, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It wasn't like no holding, like locking her in, like keep her from going nowhere. Nothing. Like, it was just like like I know I messed up. Like I'm trying to like keep her calm. I know I messed up, man. And then she just started like.
Now, how did you hold the gun when you had it in the one hand? Was the hand like on the trigger or?
Holding it like this right here. But I got everything like together.
So where was the muzzle pointed, like where the gun was? So you had it in your left hand?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm holding like just the bullet.
Okay.
It's like holding. When she goes to like whoa. It just goes up.
Was your hand on the trigger at any point, or
No,
was it on the outside of the gun?
On the outside.
Okay.
On the outside.
And then the gun fell after that, or did you still have a hold of the gun?
Just dropped.
Okay, dropped.
I dropped it. And we grabbed her.
Okay.
You think there's anything else that we didn't ask that's going to be important?
Or anything you'd like to tell us?
Yeah. You feel like you're being 100% honest?
Yes, sir. You don't feel like I'm being honest?
I'm just asking if you do.
I'm 100% honest.
Okay. That's all.
Hash the criminal record. Walker's prior record also became part of the broader context. He acknowledged during questioning that he was worried about what would happen to him because of his past.
He told detectives the gun was behind Sheena's head when it discharged. But according to the medical examiner, the fatal bullet entered from the front. The physics of his story, the physics of her wound, they don't match, and no amount of explaining.
The defendant waived his right to remain silent, gave his statement to law enforcement, said he wanted to talk, and as I said, he talked because he got caught. He didn't call the police. He didn't call 911 to help her. He didn't leave the house after that traumatic experience and then drive himself to the sheriff's office to explain what happened. He got in his car and fled the jurisdiction. Halfway across the state is where they find him. And he doesn't talk until after he gets back. Now, Mr. Brown points out that the state doesn't present an alternative theory about what happened in the house. And I submit to you that we can't, because there's only two people that know what happened, the defendant and the victim. She obviously can't tell us anything. The defendant's reluctance in that interview is not because he doesn't know the truth, it's because he doesn't want to tell the truth. And thus what he said isn't the truth. Remember, you have to consider the circumstances of what happened, the circumstances of what brought them in that place. The claim that the victim is the one that brought the gun from the room is not consistent with what was shown in the house. It's not consistent with the testimony of Lyric and of DJ. It's not even necessarily consistent with what the defendant said himself, because he was so reluctant to even talk about where the gun came from or what gun it was. The defendant didn't know the gun was chambered. That can't be true either. Something happened in that kitchen. There isn't evidence of a struggle in the house, and the defense put in photographs of the air conditioner thermostat with the top broken off and the rugs askew. The shoes are askew in the kitchen. Her panties are in the kitchen. A live round is in the kitchen. A live round doesn't just pop out of the gun by itself. It has to pop out because someone worked the mechanism of the gun. And that's in the kitchen where it would appear it started. The defendant claimed he took out the magazine, but nobody sees him pick up the magazine. Everybody sees him pick up the gun and go. And the most important part is the defendant said that the gun went off behind her head. Mr. Brown claims that that's not what he said. But if you go back to the interview at 12:47:58, or right at 12:48, and I played this clip for you, Chambliss says,
Did you still kind of have a hold of her when the gun went off, or were you completely separated?
Yeah, kind of like holding her, like, so she can like stop.
So then the guns and stuff,
Yeah,
everything
I
will
got the gun and the magazine like in my hand while I'm like holding them.
So it's all like in the back of her, like right?
Yeah.
If it was in this area, okay.
Right. Yeah.
did you still have a hold of her when the gun went off, or were you completely separated? And the defendant said definitely, like holding her, like so she can like stop. And he's gesturing, he is demonstrating where his hands were when the gun went off. And then Chambliss continues and clarifies and asks him about it being behind his head, and he says yes. And it is consistent with the soot on the nightcap, because the gun does go off, but the gun goes off on her nightcap in the front of her head, not behind it, which is completely different from what the defendant says, and that's because he does not want to tell you what really happened. She grabbed the gun, is what he told Lyric. What Lyric said yesterday that the defendant said. DJ said that the defendant said that he reached for the gun, or that she reached for the gun. Why is there a gun to begin with? Why is there even a gun to begin with? submit to you the circumstances that the defendant puts forth are not true. Why is there a gun to begin with? We've already established that she didn't bring his gun from her room. Why would there be a gun? The defendant says, Mr. Brown said of the defendant that we focused on his actions after the fact, the actions of a desperate and terrified man. And I submit to you, maybe, but those are also actions that are consistent with consciousness of guilt. The things that people do when they know they are responsible for something they shouldn't be, or things that they know they did wrong. And it took him 5 minutes to say it was a .45. It took him forever to pull out where he got rid of the gun, and then he was still not even specific about that. And I submit to you that things didn't happen the way the defendant represents in his interview. And I can't tell you how it did, but one thing is 100% for sure. If it didn't happen the way the defendant says it did, it was not an accident. The defendant's story is that this was an accident. This wasn't an accident. This was a marital dispute that got violent. The defendant introduced a gun into the situation, and then his wife was shot and killed with it. He's the only one left standing. He's the responsible party for this. You have all the evidence you need to convict him of second-degree murder. Thank you.
The defense could point to that fear as an explanation for his behavior after the shooting. The prosecution could point to it as another reason to question his actions. And once again, the same fact could be interpreted in two completely different ways. That's one of the difficult realities of criminal trials. Evidence doesn't always speak for itself. Attorneys tell the jury what they believe that evidence means, and then 12 people have to decide which interpretation makes sense. The central question, by the time the evidence was complete, the case could be reduced to one enormous question. Was Sheena's death an accident, or was it murder? The defense didn't have to prove that Walker was innocent. The prosecution had to prove guilt. That distinction is fundamental. If there was a reasonable possibility that the firearm discharged accidentally during the struggle, the jury had to consider that possibility. But if the physical evidence contradicted Walker's explanation and showed that he intentionally caused a fatal shooting, then the jury could find him guilty. The courtroom now had competing narratives. Two versions of one night, one dead woman, one surviving participant, and a jury responsible for deciding what the evidence meant. As to final arguments, the prosecution argued that Walker's behavior after the shooting was revealing. He left the apartment. He took the firearm. He didn't immediately call emergency services. He eventually fled the area. And when investigators later interviewed him, the prosecution argued that his story contained inconsistencies. They also argued that the physical evidence contradicted his description of the shooting. The defense countered that the state had not eliminated the possibility of an accident. They emphasized the absence of a clear alternative explanation. They reminded jurors that suspicion was not enough. And they asked the jury to remember the burden of proof. Asterisk, asterisk, rule life closing argument footage opportunity. Use only if licensed, lawfully available, asterisk, asterisk. The arguments were finished. The evidence had been presented. The witnesses had testified. Now the decision belonged to 12 people. As the jury. The jury had two competing explanations. One said this was an accidental shooting during a domestic confrontation. The other said the evidence demonstrated an intentional killing. The decision would determine whether Walker would leave the courthouse or spend the rest of his life behind bars. There was no middle ground. The jury went to deliberate, and then came the verdict. As the verdict, the courtroom became quiet. The verdict was read. Darryl Walker was found guilty of second-degree murder. The jury also found that he had possessed a firearm during the offense. They found that he had personally discharged that firearm. And they found that the discharge caused Sheena Levine's death. Asterisk, asterisk, roll live verdict footage opportunity. Use only if your permission or rights, asterisk, asterisk. The defense's accident theory had not persuaded the jury. The prosecution's interpretation of the evidence had prevailed. Walker would spend the rest of his life in prison. The case also involved a separate firearm charge, to which he pleaded no contest. And with a verdict, the legal question of what happened inside that apartment had reached its courtroom conclusion. What remains. But criminal cases don't always end emotionally when the judge announces a sentence. For the family, the verdict cannot bring Sheena back. For her children, Thanksgiving morning will forever carry a different meaning. A day that should have been about family became a day associated with a 911 call, an apartment, a gunshot, and a mother who never came home. The case also raises a larger question about domestic violence. Arguments don't always begin with violence. Sometimes they begin with resentment, sometimes with betrayal, sometimes with alcohol, sometimes with years of unresolved conflict, and sometimes, when a weapon enters an environment, a situation that might once have ended with words can become irreversible. Final narration. The most important part of this story isn't the firearm. It isn't the interrogation. It isn't the courtroom drama. It's a person who lost her life. Sheena Marie Levine. Her death left behind children, family, memories, and questions that will never disappear. The jury ultimately rejected the explanation that her death was simply an accident. They found Darryl Walker guilty of second-degree murder, and they found that he personally discharged a firearm that killed her. But perhaps the most unsettling lesson from the case is how quickly an ordinary night can change. A conversation, an argument, a firearm, one decision. And suddenly, a family is standing inside an apartment waiting for an answer that can never undo what happened. True crime isn't just about asking who committed a crime. It's also about understanding the people left behind. The families, the children, the investigators, and the communities that carry the consequences long after the cameras disappear. Because behind every case file is a human being. And behind every verdict is a life permanently changed. This was the case of Sheena Marie Levine. A case that began with a phone call before sunrise and ended with a jury deciding that what happened inside that apartment was not an accident. It was a crime.